story?
Tell us a story.
Canyon McCann Fickadim as a man, there once was not a small house in a small town which was ruled by a cruel mayor. And in that town, in that small house, there were 3 sisters, and their work was spinning thread. It was hard work. They worked all day long, every day. But that cruel mayor made a decree one day. Tonight, no lamps will be lit in my town. He wanted to exercise his authority to make sure every citizen would obey. And that night, he wandered through the streets, and indeed, in fear, all the citizens were in darkness. But those 3 sisters continued working, spinning thread by feel. And as he came close to that window, he heard them talking. And the eldest sister said, I wish I could marry the baker's son. Then I would always have the freshest, crustiest bread to eat. And the second sister said, I wish I could marry the cook's son. Delicately flavoured dishes, always. And the youngest said, I wish I could marry the mayor's son. I would have 3 children, a boy called Baha, another son called Hala, and a daughter called Shams. And Shams, when she smiles, the sun would come out. When she cries, clouds would come and it would rain. The mayor thought about this. All night long he wondered, and in the morning, amused as he was by these 3 wishes, he came to them and said, I have arranged everything. And indeed, the eldest of the 3 sisters was married to the baker. The second was married to the
cook.
And the third was married to his own son, the mayor's son. And how well they lived in a fine house there in that town. And how happy the older 2 sisters were. Well, they got what they wished for, but truly, our younger sister, she will live in such wealth if she is the wife of the mayor's son. And they were full of jealousy. Well, time passed, and that happy couple, the mayor's son and the youngest of the 3 sisters, well, she was large with child. And it was time for the birth. And the 2 older sisters sent a sneaky old woman to act as midwife. And as soon as that boy was born, that baby who would be called Baha, that old woman snatched the child away and replaced it with a piece of cloth. And she took the child and set the boy in a wicker basket that she had prepared, and set that basket on Wadi Gaza, the Gaza River, where it would be washed downstream towards the ocean. When her husband found that his wife had given birth to a piece of cloth, he was full of anguish. But he loved his wife. And time passed, and again her belly swelled with a child. And that same sneaky old woman was sent. The child was born a boy, and it would be called Allah. But, of course, that old woman took the baby and set it in a wicker basket and put it on Wadi Gaza to be carried away. And she replaced that little child with a piece of cloth. And when her husband came, he was distraught. Another piece of cloth. But he loved his wife, and time passed. And once again she was pregnant, and now when the birth time came, that same old woman, and she snatched the little girl away, the girl who would be rain would fall, and she was put into a wicker basket and set on Wadi Khazar and washed downstream towards the ocean, and the old woman put a large stone in that place. And her husband came. Wife, you have given birth to a stone, and he could bear it no longer. And although he loved her, he had forgotten. And he drove his wife away from the town. She was banished to somewhere far off in the desert. Now you might think that those children were indeed washed away on the ocean. But there lived downstream on the fertile plains where the barley grew on the coast of Palestine, there was a farmer and his wife, and they had no child of their own. And they had found a little boy in a basket, and they agreed to raise that boy as their own. And then there came another boy a year later, and then a girl. And the 3 children, they gave them so much love and care, adopted them as if they were their own. They loved them. And these 3 young people grew to fine young men and a woman. The time passed and they got into conversation with their supposed father and mother, and the truth was discovered that they were not their natural parents. And we wish to know the truth. Who are our natural parents? I cannot tell you, said the farmer. All I can tell you is you were washed downstream, perhaps a town upriver. So the 3 went on a quest to find out who they truly were. And they left the farmer and his wife and walked upstream and came to that town, and it just so happened that the place where they lived was the same little house where they had been conceived of by their mother. And there they lived. Now in that time, the old mayor had grown old and died unhappy, and his son had become the new mayor. But do you think he was happy?
Yeah.
How he missed his wife. Why did I drive her away? I do not understand what happened. And the whole town was unhappy because it was ruled in such an unhappy manner. But there were 2 people in that town who knew exactly who these 2 young men and this young woman were. The 2 older sisters. They found that sneaky old woman who now was indeed ancient. And she came to that house and she said, I have heard that you want to know who you truly are. Yes, yes, said Allah, Baha and Shams. We want to know. The only one who can tell you is the bird who always speaks the truth. How will we find this bird? Listen to my directions. And the old woman told of mountains and forests that they would have to cross until they found that bird with bright shining golden plumage. And the eldest Baha said, I will go. I will find that bird. I will learn the truth. And he waved goodbye to his brother and sister, and off he set over mountains, through forests, tall tree where there was perched a bird with the most beautiful shining golden plumage. And the bird sang. If you want to know the truth, sing, here I am, Baha sang,
Here
I am. And suddenly he felt his limbs stiffen. He couldn't move. He was turned to stone. The brother and sister who remained in the town wondered where the elder brother was. And finally, Allah said, "My sister, I will go in search of our brother. I will learn the truth." And he remembered the route as directed by the old woman, and he set off across mountains and forests and came to that very same tree. And there was the bird with golden plumage. And the bird said, "If you want to know the truth, sing, 'Here I am.'" And without hesitation, Allah sang, "Here I am." And as he sang it, he saw beside him was his brother turned to stone, but he could not reach for his brother. Before he knew it, he too had been petrified. Back in the town, for Shams, there were only tears, and the rain fell incessantly. How she missed her two older brothers, those two brothers who had loved her all her life, and now she was all alone in the world. She had courage, and she determined that she would find them. So she remembered the journey route, off over mountains, across forests, to that very same tall tree. And as she approached, she saw the two stone figures, her brothers, Baha and Allah. And the bird of truth, golden plumage, sang, "If you want to know the truth, sing, 'Here I am.'" And Shams was silent. She did not reply. And again the bird sang, "If you want to know the truth, sing, 'Here I am.'" But not a sound passed Shams' lips. The bird took flight, fluttered down, and landed on Shams' hand, and sang, "You have passed the test. I will take you and show you the truth." And Shams said, "We will go nowhere until my brothers have been released from the spell." And the bird fluttered up and dropped sacred dust over those two stone forms, and they were freed from the spell. "Oh, our sister!" And Shams and Baha and Allah, they set off, and they went with that bird, following that bird through forests and over until finally they came to that town, and into their little house they moved, and the bird lived in a beautiful cage in the window, and the three of them were glad to be together, but still they did not know the truth. The unhappy young mayor who ruled over that town was walking through the streets. It was a festival day, but there was little joy. And as he passed that window, he heard a song from a golden feathered bird. He listened, and the bird sang, "Who ever heard of a mother who gave birth to a piece of cloth? Who ever heard of a mother who gave birth to a piece of cloth? Who ever heard of a mother who gave birth to a stone?" And at that moment, that young man, it dawned on him. He knew he had been deceived. It was not his own wife, it was others. "I have wronged her." He went round and entered into the small house, and there were the two young men and this woman. He said, "I Shams, her face lit up, her eyes were bright, and the sun came out. The father said, "I am sorry, my children. I was cruel. I betrayed your mother." "Bird," said Shams, "will you take us to her?" And the bird was released from the cage. Out of the door the bird fluttered, and golden feathered they followed the bird that always speaks the truth, far, far, far into the desert. Finally they came to a desolate place where that woman was living all alone, abandoned by the world. But she knew, these are my children who I lost when they were born. And she held them to her, and there were tears of joy, and the sun shone bright. But behind stood the father. "Wife, you can never forgive me for what I have done." But the mother opened her arms. Forgiveness. And the family embraced, and together they returned to their little house. And soon they moved in together with the mare, reunited and glad. And the bird lived with them, not in a cage, but free to fly wherever it wished. But it always came back. And you know, we know that one day that bird will be needed again. That bird who always speaks the truth. A traditional Palestinian story reworked by my friend, what an amazing creative energy, Amal Mukhairez. Thank you to Caravan Al Yasmeen.